Thank you, Kaylee. Don't drown, turn around is the order of the day. Joanna Marsh joins us now, our staff writer from Falls Church, Virginia. We're talking about the KCS-CP merger and what is going on there right now, trying to fit those two things together here. What's going on there, Joanna?
Hi, yes, good morning. So on Friday, the Office of Environmental Analysis with the Surface Transportation Board released their draft environmental impact statement, looking at what potential environmental impacts might arise from the merger between Kansas City Southern and Canadian Pacific. So that's pretty much what's going on, and the the STB will hold a couple of hearings in September in local communities that could potentially be impacted by the merger, and then of course people can submit public comments as well, and those will be due on September 26th, and then the Office of Environmental Analysis will take in those comments, and then a final environmental impact statement will come out sometime in a few weeks following that.
Talk about this environmental analysis isn't just like the actual impact that it has on the climate and the earth around where these trains are going to be running, but it also has to do with a lot of the noise, where you're adding 8 trains a day now to where you're already having 14 trains run through. And that can be kind of a nuisance to the folks who live around that area too. Is that something that the STB is taking into account when they're looking at the environmental impacts of this?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that can be a big concern, and obviously, that's why they want to hear from people about, I guess, how the noise could impact them, and what sort of mitigation measures could be in place, should the merger proceed. That's one issue, of course, so the train noise, and that's actually the main issue that came out of the STB's findings. They also looked at other factors, such as how would traffic waits at railroad crossings. How long will cars and vehicles have to wait? And I think and some other factors as well. But noise is the main issue that came out of their findings.
It would seem to me that there's a lot of things to go through, right? And before you went through this bid and acceptance, et cetera, between, KCS-CP, et cetera, and we remember the other players that were in there as well, that they would have done their own due diligence. How much of this is reviewing things that have already been looked at by their engineers and planners, and how much of this is fresh studies that need to be made now that this proposal is for real?
Yeah. So this environmental impact statement is something that has to be done by federal law. The statement was done sort of as part of the merger process. A lot of the major infrastructure projects have to go through this. So it's a prepared statement. Was it the national? It's NEPA. So it's like the National Environmental. The National Environmental. I can't remember the name, NEPA, but you can look it up on Google. But so it's by federal law they have to do this, and so I think it's something that that KCS and CP have looked at, and obviously for them you want the merger to go through and to be approved, and so they're going to try to cross their T's and dot their I's. So, but I think even in general, it's just nice to have another set of eyes, like look at at issues might come up. So,
if it was going to affect my community or the communities around me, I'd want another set of eyes,
right,
obviously, and so would KCS-CP. They don't. I'm sure they're not nefariously after this, like you see in the old movies where they try to remove entire towns and stuff like that, right? There are a few westerns about that type of stuff.
Joanna, with this though, so we know that there's a public comment period open, and I don't know if this is kind of like an existential question or what, but what would it truly take? How much community involvement would it take for the STB to step in and say, you know what, the community really doesn't want this to happen? Would it take several townships standing up and saying that, or do we really just kind of not know?
Yeah, I think I think what I can say is that the current chairman, Marty Oberman, kind of views it his role as being chairman as kind of being the advocate for shippers and for communities, like during these. Not even just this merger, but also like the rail service issues that have been going on. And so I can't say for sure, but I think that Chairman Omerman and the others might want to take these issues seriously, or at least look like they're taking them seriously. Even though this isn't quite related to the environmental impact statement, there are some 8 suburbs that have, outside of Chicago, that have formed a coalition to sort of to have the STB more closely examine how the merger could affect their communities. And they're really pulling a massive, sort of an aggressive effort to get their issues seen and raised. So we'll see what happens in terms of how the STB responds to the communities. But I think at the very least, they do want to act on the behalf of the communities when talking to CP or KCS about how this merger might affect them.
Yeah, the interesting part as well is there'll be a lot of goodwill kind of touring and efforts that are made by KCS and CP, right, to get this through, right? I mean, there's going to be some disruption in those communities, but there are many things that those communities would welcome that could be advanced because of this issue as well. So, I mean, there's always that give and take, and maybe some people may look at it as payoffs and stuff like that, but it's really not. It is, there's infrastructure that needs to be done, and those communities can really improve themselves by this happening. And a lot of that will take place, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah, that's definitely something that could happen. I'm sure that as you mentioned, CP and KCS will probably try to reach out to those communities and try to.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Joanna, thank you for joining us this morning. We'll be watching this as it continues to develop. Right now, it's time to check on what is trending on social media right now, and we're going to toss it over to Christian Thomas.